Hey everyone, get ready for a fun story that's going to grab you right from the start. Imagine a bright, sunny Saturday afternoon. The birds are chirping, the sky is blue, and Jake Miller is just a regular guy who wants to have a good time. Jake's a friendly dude, someone you'd like to hang out with. He's not super tall or super short, just a normal guy with a big smile and a love for relaxing on the weekends. For weeks, he'd been working hard in his backyard, building something awesome, a little outdoor bar. Yep, a bar. It wasn't huge or fancy, but it was perfect for him. He made it with his own hands, hammering wood together, painting it a cool blue color, and adding a little counter where he could pour drinks. He even put up some tiny lights that twinkled at night like stars. It was his special spot, a place to chill with his buddies, sip some lemonade or soda, and just enjoy life. Now, Jake's bar wasn't loud or crazy. It was simple. He'd sit out there with a few friends, maybe play some quiet music and laugh about silly things. The neighbors thought it was great. Old Mr. Thompson from across the street would wave and say, "Nice job, Jake." Kids riding their bikes would peek over the fence and grin. Even Mrs. Lopez, who lived next door, said, "That bar looks so fun, can I come over sometime?" Jake would laugh and say, "Sure, anytime." Everyone loved it. Well, almost everyone. Because there was one person who didn't like Jake's bar at all. And that person was about to make things really interesting. Her name was Karen Baxter. Karen wasn't just any neighbor, she was the boss of the neighborhood. Well, she thought she was. She was the president of the HOA, which stands for Homeowners Association. That's a group of people who make rules about how houses and yards should look. Karen loved rules. She loved them so much that she carried a clipboard everywhere she went, writing down anything she didn't like. If your grass was too tall, she'd knock on your door. If your mailbox was a little crooked, she'd leave a note. Karen had short, gray hair, sharp eyes, and a frown that never went away. She was like an eagle, always watching, always ready to swoop down on anything she thought was wrong. On that sunny Saturday, Jake was out at his bar, wiping down the counter and humming a little tune. He had no idea that Karen was standing at her window, staring right at him. Her house was just across the street, and from her big window she could see everything. She saw the bar, she saw the lights, she saw Jake smiling, and she didn't like it one bit. To her, that bar wasn't cool or fun, it was trouble, big trouble. She tightened her grip on her clipboard, her pen scratching fast as she wrote something down. Her lips pressed into a thin line like she was biting back a growl. Karen had a grudge, a big, angry feeling against anything that didn't fit her perfect little world. And Jake's bar, it didn't fit at all. But here's the fun part, the part that's going to keep you listening. Karen didn't know something about Jake, something really, really big. Jake wasn't just a guy with a bar, he had a secret so cool that it was going to turn this whole story upside down. Karen thought she was the smart one, watching him like a hawk, ready to pounce. But she had no clue what was coming. And Jake, he didn't even know she was watching him yet. He was too busy enjoying his day, sipping a cold drink and planning to invite his friends over later. The sun was shining, the breeze was blowing, and everything seemed perfect. For now. Let's paint the picture a little more so you can see it in your head. Jake's backyard wasn't giant, but it was nice. He had green grass, a big tree with a swing, and a wooden fence all around. The bar sat near the back, close to the fence, with 2 stools in front of it. He'd built a little roof over it too, so he could sit there even if it rained. It looked like something you'd see in a movie, a happy place where people could laugh and talk. Jake wasn't rich or anything. He just liked making things with his hands. He worked at a regular job during the week, fixing cars at a shop, and on weekends he liked to kick back. That bar was his prize, his little piece of fun after a long week. Now let's talk about Karen's house for a second. Her place was super neat, too neat. The grass was cut perfect, like someone measured every blade. Her flowers were in straight rows, all the same color, bright red. Her mailbox stood up straight, painted white with her name in big black letters, KBAXTER. She had curtains in her windows that were always closed, but on that day one was pulled back just a little. And behind it, there she was watching. Her eyes were like lasers locked on Jake's bar. She didn't move. She just stood there, staring, her mind racing with ideas about how to stop him. Now, Jake didn't see her. He was too busy thinking about his plans. Maybe he'd grill some hot dogs later. Maybe he'd call his friend Mike and say, "Hey, come check out the bar." He was happy. He felt good. The bar wasn't hurting anyone. It wasn't loud or messy. It was just there. But to Karen, it was like a giant sign that said, "I don't follow your rule." And Karen loved rules more than anything. She loved being in charge. She loved telling people what to do. And Jake's bar. It made her feel like she wasn't in charge anymore. That made her mad, really mad. So what was Karen going to do? She wasn't the type to just let it go. Oh no, she was already thinking about her next move. Maybe she'd write a letter. Maybe she'd call a meeting. Maybe she'd tell everyone in the neighborhood that Jake was a problem. She didn't know yet, but she was going to do something. And Jake, he was just living his life, clueless about the storm that was brewing across the street. He didn't know Karen was about to make his sunny day a lot less sunny. But here, where it gets exciting. Remember that secret I told you about? The big thing Karen did know. It's like a surprise waiting to pop out of a box. Jake wasn't just a regular guy with a bar. There was more to him, something awesome that Karen couldn't even guess. What do you think it was? Was he a superhero? A secret spy? Something even cooler? I'm not telling you yet. You've got to stick around because this story is going to get wild. Oh, it's going to twist and turn, and by the end, you'll be cheering for Jake and laughing at what happens next. Let's take a quick peek at Jake again. He's out there wiping his bar with a rag, smiling to himself. The sun is warm on his face. He's wearing a plain t-shirt and jeans, nothing fancy. His brown hair is a little messy from the wind. He looks happy, like nothing can ruin his day. And why should it? He's got his bar, his friends, and a whole weekend ahead of him. He doesn't know about Karen yet. He doesn't know she's plotting. He doesn't know she's about to flip his world upside down. But he's going to find out soon. Really soon. And Karen, she's still at her window, her clipboard in her hands. She's writing something, maybe a list of rules Jake's breaking, maybe a plan to get rid of that bar. Her pen moves fast, scratching the paper like she's mad at it. She's not happy, not one bit. To her, Jake's bar is like a big, loud no to everything she stands for. She's the queen of the neighborhood, or so she thinks, and Jake is like a kid who won't listen. She's not going to let that slide. No way. So picture this, Jake in his backyard, chilling. Karen in her house, glaring. Two people, one sunny day and a fight that's about to start. Who's going to win? What's Jake's secret? And what's Karen going to do next? You don't want to miss this. It's going to be fun, it's going to be crazy, and it's going to keep you guessing. So what do you think Jake's secret is? Tell me your guess, I want to hear it. And get ready, because this story is just getting started. It's going to be a wild ride. Okay, let's dive into the next part of our story. Things are about to get a little bumpy for Jake, because Karen isn't just any neighbor. Oh no, she's way more than that. Karen Baxter is the kind of person who loves rules so much it's like her whole day is ruined if something isn't perfect. Picture her with a ruler in her hand, bending down to measure your grass. If it's even half an inch too long, bam, she's writing you a nasty note. Cut your grass, the note might say, all in big, angry letters. She'd stick it on your door and march away, feeling like she'd won a prize. That's Karen. She's not happy unless everything looks just right, and she's the one who gets to say what right is. So when Karen saw Jake's little outdoor bar in his backyard, she didn't just frown and move on. Nope, she lost it, completely lost it. That bar wasn't just a bar to her, it was like a giant problem staring her in the face. Jake had made it so cool, with little string lights that twinkled like fireflies and a mini fridge that hummed quietly, keeping his drinks cold. To Jake, it was awesome. To his friends, it was fun. But to Karen, it was a disaster. She stood there one day, peeking over the wooden fence that separated their yards, her eyes wide and her face turning red like a big, ripe tomato. She couldn't believe it. A bar in her neighborhood? No way. And this isn't a frat house, she yelled over the fence. Her voice was loud and sharp, like a teacher scolding a kid who forgot his homework. Jake was outside, wiping down the bar with a rag when she shouted. He looked up, surprised, and saw her glaring at him. Her gray hair was pulled back tight and her hands were on her hips. She looked mad, really mad. Jake didn't know what a frat house was exactly. quickly, but he figured it was something loud and messy, like a party that never stops. His bar wasn't like that. It was quiet and neat. He didn't get why she was so upset. So he just smiled, gave her a little wave, and said, "Hey, Karen, it's just for fun." He thought maybe she'd calm down and see it wasn't a big deal. Maybe she'd even laugh about it later. Boy, was he wrong. That was a big mistake. Karen didn't calm down, not even a little. That wave and smile, it made her even madder. To her, Jake wasn't just some guy with a bar, he was a troublemaker, a rule breaker, someone who didn't care about her perfect neighborhood. She turned away from the fence, stomping back to her house, her clipboard bouncing in her hand. She was already thinking about what to do next. Jake didn't know it yet, but Karen wasn't the type to let things go. She was like a dog with a bone. Once she got an idea in her head, she wouldn't stop until she got her way. And right now, her idea was that Jake's bar had to go. After that day, Karen started talking about Jake to anyone who would listen. She'd walk around the neighborhood with her nose in the air, telling people all about that lazy kid across the street. That's what she called him, that lazy kid. She'd say it like it was his real name. "Oh, you know that lazy kid Jake," she'd tell Mrs. Lopez next door. "He built this ugly bar in his yard. It's ruining property values." Our property values are how much houses are worth, and Karen acted like Jake's bar was making everyone's house worth less money. She'd say it to Mr. Thompson, too, when he was watering his flowers. "That lazy kid doesn't care about our rules," she'd huff. Even the mailman got an earful one day. "Have you seen what that lazy kid did?" she asked, pointing at Jake's house. The mailman just nodded and kept walking, but Karen didn't care. She wanted everyone to know Jake was bad news. Jake heard some of this, not all of it, but enough. One day Mrs. Lopez waved him over while he was mowing his lawn. "Hey, Jake," she said, looking a little nervous. "Karen's been talking about your bar. She says it's a problem." Jake laughed and shrugged his shoulders. "It's just a bar," he said. "It's not hurting anyone." He didn't think it was a big deal. People liked it. Kids thought it was cool, and his friends loved hanging out there. He figured Karen was just grumpy and would get over it soon. He didn't want to fight with her. He just wanted to enjoy his weekends. So he kept smiling, kept waving, and kept thinking everything would be fine. But he didn't know something important. Karen wasn't going to stop. She was about to take things to the next level, and Jake wasn't ready for it. Let's picture Karen for a minute. She's not tall, but she stands like she is, with her back straight and her chin up. She's got that clipboard always tucked under her arm like it's her best friend. She wears plain clothes, usually a gray shirt and black pants, nothing fun or colorful. Her house is perfect, like I told you before. The grass is short, the flowers are neat, and everything looks like it belongs in a picture book. She's proud of that. She thinks the whole neighborhood should look like her house, and anyone who doesn't agree is wrong. That's why Jake's bar bugged her so much. It wasn't neat or plain. It was fun. It was different, and Karen didn't like different. Now let's go back to Jake. He's the opposite of Karen in a lot of ways. He's easygoing. He doesn't care if his grass is a tiny bit long or if his fence has a scratch. He likes things to be simple and happy. His bar was part of that. He'd spent weeks building it, hammering nails and painting it blue. He'd saved up for that mini fridge too. It wasn't fancy, but it worked. He loved sitting out there, feeling the breeze and chatting with his buddies. To him, it was his little escape. It was a place to forget about work and just be himself. He didn't think it was bothering anyone. But to Karen, it was like a big, loud sign that said, "I don't listen to you," and that made her blood boil. Now the tension was growing, even if Jake didn't see it yet. Tension is like a rubber band stretching tighter and tighter. You can't see it snap until it does, but you know it's coming. That's what was happening here. Karen kept watching Jake from her window, her eyes narrow and her lips tight. She'd see him out there laughing or fixing something on the bar, and it drove her crazy. She'd mutter to herself, "He thinks he can do whatever he wants. Not in my neighborhood." She started making plans. Maybe she'd write a big letter to the HOA. Maybe she'd call someone important. She wasn't sure yet, but she knew she had to stop him. Jake didn't notice her starring. He was too busy living his life. One afternoon, he was out at the bar setting up some cups for his friends. The sun was warm and he was in a good mood. He didn't hear Karen muttering across the street. He didn't see her writing notes about him. He thought she'd yelled once and that was it. He didn't know she was telling everyone he was lazy and ruining things. He didn't know she was getting angrier every day. To him, it was just another sunny afternoon. But to Karen, it was war. A quiet war for now, but a war just the same. The neighborhood started feeling it too. People were picking sides even if they didn't say it out loud. Mrs. Lopez liked Jake, but she didn't want to make Karen mad. Mr. Thompson thought the bar was fine, but he didn't like arguing. The kids on their bikes didn't care, they just wanted to see the bar up close. But Karen's words were spreading like little seeds growing into trouble. "That lazy kid," she'd say again and again, and some people started nodding. Not everyone, but enough to make things tricky for Jake. He didn't know it yet, but the fight was coming. And Karen, she was ready to turn it up a notch. "All right, let's keep this story rolling. Things are heating up now and it's getting more exciting every minute." Weeks went by after Karen first yelled at Jake about his bar. The sun kept shining, the birds kept singing, but Karen's grumbling, it didn't stop. Nope, it got louder, way louder. She wasn't just mad anymore, she was on a mission. I picture her stomping around the neighborhood like a sheriff in an old cowboy movie. She had her HOA rule book tucked under her arm, holding it tight like it was her favorite toy. That book was full of rules about what people could do in their yards, and Karen loved it more than anything. She'd flip through the pages, muttering to herself, looking for something, anything, she could use against Jake. Every time she walked by Jake's house, she'd stop and stare at that little outdoor bar. Her sharp eyes would squint and her lips would twist into a frown. Then snap, she'd pull out her phone and take pictures. Click, click, click. She'd snap shots of the bar from every angle, the string lights, the mini fridge, the blue paint. It was like she was a detective building a big case, collecting clues to prove Jake was breaking the rules. She'd march down the street, showing those pictures to anyone who'd look. See this. She'd say to Mrs. Lopez, holding up her phone, "This bar is a mess, it's against the rules." Mrs. Lopez would nod a little, not sure what to say. Then Karen would go to Mr. Thompson. "Look at this junk," she'd huff, waving the phone in his face. Mr. Thompson would just shrug and water his flowers, but Karen didn't care. She was loud and she wanted everyone to hear her. Jake, though, he stayed cool, super cool. He didn't let Karen's stomping and snapping get to him, at least not on the outside. He'd still sit at his bar in the afternoons, sipping a soda or fixing a loose nail. When he saw Karen glaring from across the street, he'd just smile and keep doing his thing. One day, he even tried to be extra nice. He was out there with a cold soda in his hand, the kind with bubbles that tickle your nose. He saw Karen walking by, her rule book in one hand and her phone in the other. Jake thought, maybe I can make her like me. So he held up the soda and called out, "Hey, Karen, want one? It's hot out here." His voice was friendly, like he really meant it. He hoped she'd soften up, maybe even smile back. But Karen, oh, she wasn't having it. She stopped in her tracks, turned to face him, and her face went all sour, like she'd just bitten a lemon. "No thanks," she snapped, her voice sharp and mean. "I don't drink from trash cans." Ouch, that hurt. Jake's bar wasn't a trash can, it was clean and neat, painted nice and shiny. But to Karen it was garbage, and she wanted him to know it. She didn't even wait for him to say anything back. She just turned and marched off, her shoes clicking on the sidewalk. Jake stood there holding the soda, his mouth open a little. He didn't know what to say. Trash can, he thought, that's harsh. But he didn't yell back or get mad. He just shook his head, took a sip of his soda, and went back to wiping down the bar. He wasn't going to let her ruin his day. Still, that moment stuck with him. Karen's words stung a little, even if he didn't show it. And here, where things start to shift, Jake wasn't just chilling anymore. He started paying attention. He'd sit at his bar looking out over the fence, and he'd notice Karen more. She wasn't just complaining about him now. She was watching everything. Every time a delivery truck rolled down the street, maybe bringing pizza or a package, she'd peek out her window, her eyes narrow. If a kid rode by on a bike, she'd glare like they were up to no good. Jake saw it all. He'd lean back on his stool, sipping his drink, and think, what's her deal? Why's she so mad all the time? He didn't get it. His bar wasn't loud. It wasn't messy. So why was she acting like he'd built a giant monster in his yard? The weeks kept passing, and the little war between them grew, quietly, but it grew. Karen's complaints weren't just words anymore. She started doing more. One day, Jake saw her sticking a note on his mailbox. He walked over and pulled it off. It said, "Your bar breaks Rule 17B, take it down," in big, angry letters. Jake scratched his head. Rule 17B. He didn't even know what that was. He didn't have a copy of her precious rule book, but he could tell she was serious. Another day, she left a flyer in everyone's mailbox. It had a picture of Jake's bar, yep, one of her sneaky snapshots, and big words at the top. "Say no to backyard junk." Jake found it crumpled in his grass, probably tossed there by a kid. He laughed a little, but inside he was starting to wonder. She's not giving up, he thought. What's next? And Jake kept his cool, though. He didn't rip up the note or throw the flyer back at her house. He just tucked them in his pocket and went about his day. But he was watching her now, just like she was watching him. He'd see her march past with that rule book, her head held high, and he'd notice little things, like how she'd stop and stare at every truck that parked nearby, or how she'd scribble something on her clipboard every time he turned on the bar's lights at night. It was weird. Why did she care so much? What was making her act like this? Jake didn't have answers yet, but he was starting to ask questions, and that was new. Here's the fun part. Karen had no idea Jake was on to her. She thought he was just that lazy kid, sitting there not caring. She didn't know he was paying attention. She didn't know he was starting to figure her out. And she really didn't know he had something up his sleeve, something big, something cool, something that was going to change everything. Jake wasn't just a guy with a bar. There was more to him, a secret hiding under his easy smile. Karen thought she was the smart one, building her case with pictures and notes. But Jake, he was waiting. Not on purpose, maybe, but waiting just the same. And her next move, whatever it was, well, it was about to light the fuse on this whole crazy story. Let's picture it for a second. It's a warm afternoon, maybe a Tuesday. Jake, at his bar, fixing a string of lights that went out. The sun's dipping low, painting the sky orange. Across the street, Karen's at her window, peeking through the curtains. She's got her phone ready, snapping another picture. Click. Like she's caught him doing something bad. Jake looks up, sees her shadow behind the curtain, and tilts his head. He doesn't wave this time, he just watches. The delivery truck rolls by, dropping off a package at Mrs. Lopez's house. Karen's eyes flick to it, then back to Jake. She scribbles something fast. Jake sips his soda and thinks, what's she writing now? He doesn't know, but he's curious. More curious than he's ever been. The neighborhood, feeling it too. Mrs. Lopez doesn't say much, but she's quieter around Jake now. Mr. Thompson still waves, but he looks away fast, like he's scared Corinne's watching. The kids on bikes still ride by, giggling at the bar, but even they've heard Corinne's complaints. She says it's ugly, one kid whispers to another. I think it's cool, the other says back. Little bits of tension are popping up everywhere like bubbles in a soda can. It's not a big fight yet, but it's building. Jake's bar is still there, twinkling at night, humming with the fridge. Corinne's still marching, snapping, scribbling, and something's coming, something neither of them expects. So what's Corinne's deal? Why's she so stuck on Jake's bar, and what's Jake hiding up his sleeve? I'm not telling you yet. This story's like a puzzle and the pieces are falling into place. Corinne's next move is going to be big, bigger than notes or flyer. And Jake, he's not just chilling anymore. He's ready even if he doesn't know it. Stick around because this is about to get wild. What do you think happens next? Tell me, I want to hear your guesses. Okay, friends, hold on tight because this is the part of the story where everything explodes into something amazing. We're at the big moment, the climax, where all the little hints and sneaky bits come together. It's going to be so fun and you won't believe what happens next. Let's jump right in. It was a nice evening, the kind where the air feels warm and the stars are just starting to peek out. Jake was at his little outdoor bar having a good time. He'd invited a few buddies over, his friends Mike and Sam, who he'd known forever. They weren't a big group, just 3 guys hanging out. They were laughing about silly stuff, like the time Mike fell off his bike as a kid, and playing some music. Not loud music, mind you, it was soft, the kind you hum along to, not the kind that shakes the windows. Jake had his bar all set up, cold sodas in the mini fridge, some snacks on the counter, and those twinkly string lights glowing above them. It was perfect. The guys were happy, sitting on stools, sipping drinks, and telling stories. Nothing wild, just a chill night in the backyard. But then, bam, something crazy happened. Out of nowhere, red and blue lights started flashing in Jake's driveway. You know those lights, right? The ones on police cars that spin around and make everything look like a movie. Jake and his buddies stopped laughing. They turned their heads, squinting into the dark, trying to figure out what was going on. The music kept playing, but it felt quieter now. 2 cops stepped out of the car, their boots crunching on the gravel. They were tall, wearing dark uniforms with shiny badges, and they looked serious. Jake's heart skipped a beat. Cops here, why, he thought. Mike whispered, Jake, what's this about? Jake just shrugged, confused. He hadn't done anything wrong. And then there she was, Corinne. She came marching out from the shadows, her arms crossed and a big smirk on her face. That smirk was like a cat who'd caught a mouse. She looked so proud, like she'd just won a giant prize. She pointed right at Jake, her finger stabbing the air. "That's him," she said to the cops, her voice loud and sharp. "He's the one hosting an illegal party." Illegal means against the rule, and Karen was saying Jake's little hangout was some big bad thing. She stood there, her gray hair glowing under the streetlight, her clipboard nowhere in sight for once. She didn't need it now. She'd called 911 the real deal. She thought she'd finally got Jake. Her eyes sparkled with victory, and that smirk grew even bigger. And Jake blinked. A party? Illegal? He looked at Mike and Sam, who were just as confused. Three guys with sodas and some quiet tunes, that's a party. He almost laughed, but he didn't. The cops were walking closer now, their faces hard to read. Karen kept talking, her words spilling out fast. "I told him that bar was trouble," she said. "He's breaking all the rules. Noise, lights, everything. I've had enough." She nodded at the cops like they were her best friends, sure they'd drag Jake away or tear down his bar right then and there. She'd been waiting for this moment. Weeks of snapping pictures and writing notes had led to this. She thought she'd won. But then, oh, this is the best part, something incredible happened. One of the cops, the taller one with a buzz cut, stopped walking. He looked at Jake, really looked at him, and his serious face broke into a big, wide grin. "Hey, Miller," he said, his voice all friendly and loud. "Didn't expect to see you here." Miller, that's Jake's last name. The other cop, a guy with a mustache, started grinning too. He waved at Jake like they were old pals meeting at the park. "Jake, man, what's up?" he said, chuckling. And Jake's buddies, Mike and Sam, looked at each other, then back at Jake, their eyes wide. Karen, her smirk froze. Her mouth opened a little, like she couldn't believe what she was hearing. Here's the big reveal, the secret we've been waiting for. Jake wasn't just some random guy with a bar. He was a cop. Yep, a real, honest-to-goodness police officer. He worked at the precinct, the police station, fixing cars during the day and helping out on patrols sometimes. These two cops, they were his buddies from work. They knew him. They liked him, and right now they were standing in his driveway, laughing like this was the funniest thing ever. Jake grinned back, scratching his head. "Hey guys," he said. "And didn't expect you either." He wasn't scared anymore. He was happy to see them. It was like a surprise party, but way better. Karen's jaw dropped, like all the way down. Her smirk was gone, poof, like smoke in the wind. She stood there, her arms falling to her sides, staring at the cops, then at Jake, then back at the cops. She didn't know what to say. Her big plan, calling 911, getting Jake in trouble, it was falling apart right in front of her. The tall cop turned to her, crossing his arms over his chest. "What's going on, Karen?" he asked. His voice wasn't mean, but it wasn't soft either. It was the kind of voice that says, "Explain yourself." The mustache cop nodded, looking at her too. "Yeah, what's the problem here?" he said. They weren't mad, but they weren't on her side either. They were waiting for her to talk. Karen sputtered. That's when you try to talk, but it comes out all messy. He's got a party, she said, pointing at the bar again. It's loud, it's against the rules. But her voice wasn't strong anymore. It wobbled like she wasn't so sure. The tall cop raised an eyebrow and looked at Jake's bar. He walked over, his boots thumping on the grass, and peeked at it. The music was still playing, soft and slow. 3 sodas sat on the counter, half empty. Mike and Sam waved at him, a little nervous but smiling. The cop turned back to Karen. "This," he said, "this is your illegal party." He didn't laugh, but you could tell he wanted to. Jake stepped forward, still grinning. "Just hanging out, Tom," he said to the tall cop. "No trouble here." Tom, that was the cop's name, nodded. "Looks fine to me," he said. The mustache cop, whose name was Dave, walked over too. "Nice bar, Jake," he said, tapping the counter. "You build this?" Jake nodded, proud. "Yep, all by myself." Dave whistled, impressed. "Cool," he said. They weren't here to arrest Jake. They were here because Karen called, but now they were just chatting like friends. It was awesome. Karen's face went red again, but not from anger this time. She looked embarrassed, really embarrassed. She'd called 911 thinking she'd catch Jake doing something bad, but instead she'd brought his cop buddies right to his house. She didn't know Jake was one of them. All those weeks of calling him that lazy kid, snapping pictures, leaving notes, she thought he was just some guy she could boss around, but he was. He was a cop off duty, just enjoying his night. And now her big moment was a big flop. The cops turned back to her. "Anything else, ma'am?" Tom asked, his arms still crossed. Karen shook her head fast, her words gone. She mumbled something like, "No, never mind," and started backing away. Her smirk was history, her victory over. She'd lit the fuse all right, but it didn't blow up Jake, it blew up her own plan. Dave clapped Jake on the shoulder. "See you at work, man," he said. "Tell Mike to stop falling off bikes." Mike laughed, and Sam did too. The cops waved, got back in their car, and drove off, the red and blue lights fading into the night. Jake stood there watching them go, then looked at Karen. She was halfway across the street now, hurrying to her house. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. The truth was out. Jake was a cop, and Karen's big move had turned into a big surprise. His bar still standing, his night still fun, and Karen, she'd think twice before messing with him again. What a twist, right? Stick around, because this story's not over yet. All right, let's wrap up this wild night and see how everything turns out. The cops, Tom and Dave, stood there in Jake's backyard, listening to Karen go on and on. She was still trying to tell them Jake's bar was bad. "It's loud, it's wrong," she said, her voice all shaky now. But the cops weren't buying it. They'd already seen the bar, 3 sodas, some soft music, and a few laughs. It wasn't a big deal. Tom, the tall cop, turned to Jake and asked, "This your bar?" Jake leaned back on his stool, a big grin on his face. "Yup," he said, proud as can be. "Built it myself." He pointed at the blue paint and the twinkly lights, showing off his hard work. Tom and Dave laughed, not a mean laugh, but a friendly one, like they thought it was cool. They walked over to the bar, looking at it up close. Dave tapped the counter with his hand. "Nice job," he said. Tom nodded. "Looks legal to us," he added. Legal means it's okay with the law, and that's what mattered to them. Karen's eyes got wide. She sputtered, her words tripping over each other. "But the HOA rules," she cried, waving her arms. "He's breaking them." The HOA rules were her big thing, the ones in her precious book. She thought the cops would care, but Tom just shrugged his shoulders. "That's not our problem, ma'am," he said, calm and simple. Dave nodded too. "Call us when there's a real crime," he said. They weren't here for her rules, they were here for laws, and Jake wasn't breaking any. Karen's face went all red again. She didn't know what to say. Her big plan had crashed, and she looked silly standing there. The cops didn't wait for her to argue more. Tom gave Jake a fist bump, bumping knuckles like buddies, and said, "Take care, Miller." Dave grinned and waved. Then they turned, walked back to their car, and drove away. The red and blue lights disappeared, and the night got quiet again. Karen shuffled off to her house, her head down. She didn't look so tough anymore. The next day, everything changed. Word spread fast through the neighborhood like a game of telephone. "Jake's a cop," people whispered. Karen called 911 and it backfired. By morning, everyone knew. Mr. Thompson waved at Jake from across the street, a big smile on his face. Mrs. Lopez stopped by with cookies and said, "Love your bar, Jake." Even the kids on bikes rode up, asking, "Are you really a cop?" Cool. People weren't scared of Karen anymore. Her reign of terror, the way she bossed everyone around, was over. She messed with the wrong guy, and now she was the one who looked silly. Now Jake sat at his bar that day, sipping a soda, feeling good. Neighbors started coming by to chat, and his little spot became the talk of the street in a good way. Karen stayed inside, her curtains closed. She'd lost her power, and Jake, he won without even trying. Justice was served, and it felt awesome. Okay, friends, let's finish this story with a big happy ending that makes you feel good inside. It was a few days later, and the sun was setting over Jake's backyard. The sky turned all pink and orange like a giant painting. Jake was out at his bar, kicking back on a stool with a cold drink in his hand. The ice clinked in his glass, and he smiled, a real big smile. He looked around at his little spot, the blue paint, the twinkly lights, the mini fridge humming softly. It was still there, still his, and now it felt even better. He took a sip and leaned back, feeling the cool breeze on his face. Life was good. Karen, she thought she could bully him. She thought her loud voice and her 911 call would scare Jake into hiding. She wanted him to take down his bar and be quiet, like she was the boss of everything. But she was wrong, so wrong. She didn't see the strength behind Jake's chill vibe. He didn't yell or fight back, he just kept being himself. He stayed calm, kept smiling, and kept building what he loved. And that strength, it was bigger than all of Karen's rules and complaints. It was the kind of strength that doesn't need to shout. It just shines, quiet and steady until everyone notices. Sometimes the guy who stays quiet and keeps going is the one you don't want to mess with. Think about it. Jake didn't argue or get mad. He didn't tear up Karen's notes or stomp around. He just did his thing, and in the end, he won. That's pretty cool, right? It's like a secret power, being strong without making a big fuss. Karen didn't see it coming, and that's why she lost. Jake's bar was still standing, and now the whole neighborhood loved it. People waved at him, brought him snacks, and even asked to hang out. He didn't have to fight for it, he just had to be Jake. So next time you see a nosy neighbor, like a Karen with her clipboard and her frown, remember Jake. Don't let them push you around. Maybe they'll yell or try to boss you, but you don't have to give up what makes you happy. Stand tall, keep smiling, and maybe even build your own bar. Make something fun, something yours, and let it shine. You don't need to be loud to be strong, just keep going and the right people will see it. Jake did, and look how it turned out. What would you do if you were in Jake's shoes? Would you build a bar too? Maybe a tree house or a little garden? Tell me in the comments. I want to hear your ideas. And if you loved this story, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next one. Jake showed us that being yourself is the best way to win, and that's a lesson worth keeping. So go out there, be awesome, and don't let the Karens stop you. See you next time.